Hello and welcome. Federal government sets up National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons as part of moves to check insecurity in the country. People's Democratic Party reaffirms commitment to the country's unity, lists ways out of current security challenges, including creation of state police and border protection force. At least 13 people killed in fresh attack by suspected herders on Gwe local government area in Benue State. And former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warns of huge consequences following decision for the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. Plus we'll have business, sports, news from Abuja, and of course news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, federal government partners Microsoft to empower 5 million Nigerians and create over 27,000 new digital jobs in the next 3 years.
On sports news tonight, PSG sweating over fitness of forward Kylian Mbappe for the clash against Man City as they seek to overturn a first-leg deficit in the Champions League.
And from Abuja, federal government gives assurance of the return of £4.2 million seized from the associates of former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, any moment from now.
Securing Nigeria and Nigerians, that's the huge task before the federal government at this time. And the latest effort to find a solution is the decision to control the influx of small arms and light weapons into the country. The setting up of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons by the federal government today will, according to them, serve as the mechanism for policy guidance, research and monitoring of all aspects of small arms and light weapons in the country. The center, which will be domiciled in the Office of the National Security Advisor, will be headed by Major General A.M. Diko as Pioneer Coordinator. A statement from the Office of the National Security Advisor reads in part, "The impacts of the proliferation of small and light weapons across national borders in Africa and the Sahel region has resulted in terrorism, human trafficking, organized crime, and insurrections in West Africa and Nigeria. As one of the measures to tackle this threat, the new center will be fulfilling the requirements of the ECOWAS moratorium on import, export, and manufacture of light weapons." It adds that the decision to set up the center is part of ongoing restructuring of Nigeria's security architecture to address emerging threats and strengthen the regional mechanism for the control, prevention, and regulation of small and light weapons. And the military recorded a level of success against Boko Haram insurgents today by stopping another attempt by the terrorists to infiltrate Ran, a town in Borno State. According to the army, the terrorists in their numbers attempted to disrupt the peace that has been enjoyed by the border town for some time now, but were met with stiff resistance and heavy gun battle lasted about an hour. The terrorists reportedly withdrew in disarray, with a large number of them suffering fatal injuries, leaving behind several weapons and ammunition, including an anti-aircraft gun barrel. The army adds that troops had a similar encounter with another set of insurgents who were on a mission to Konduga local government area, where they burnt 9 houses and killed some innocent residents before the military repelled them. 2 soldiers were also killed in the attack. In the meantime, the main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, is also suggesting possible ways out of the security crisis, and it lists, among other things, the setting up of a national border protection force, the establishment of state police, and the strengthening of the armed forces. The national chairman of the PDP, Mr. Uche Secondus, read the suggestions today after a series of meetings by different organs of the party in the last 2 weeks.
Principal officers of the People's Democratic Party, including some former and serving governors of the party, are attending this news conference in Abuja to brief on the outcomes of the series of meetings the party has been holding on the rising insecurity in the country. National Chairman of the PDP, Mr. Uche Secondus, reads out the party's 8 demands for the federal government to tackle the security challenges.
We therefore demand, number 1, for the immediate upscaling of the personnel strength of our men and women in uniform. Number 2, call for the establishment of a state police. We call for the creation of national borders protection. And this is also very important.
Nigeria's rapidly deteriorating security situation is a major source of concern for many. The governor of Taraba State says the states are helpless because they do not control any security structure.
We that are managing the states are going through horrors. We that are in the state are having it difficult to explain to our people. I've had several times people come to me and say, Governor, what are you doing? They are massacring us. I tell them that I have nothing to do because there is no security under my control. They cannot understand. They find it difficult to understand. Let us wake up and do something that is sensible and reasonable.
The PDP also expresses concern over the nation's economic situation, decrying Nigeria's rising debt profile, inflation rate, and massive unemployment. Former Senate President Bukola Saraki insists that the PDP will continue to mount pressure on the government until the tide is turned.
Pressure on government eventually yields results, but we will continue to follow that through what the Constitution means, and that is why we're here today making this press conference, and that's why we'll continue to demand that the right thing is done and play our own role.
Insecurity in Nigeria takes the forms of terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and arson, among others, and the situation has left many citizens in so much uncertainty.
Meanwhile, a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress and a former minority leader in the House of Representatives, Farouk Adamu Aliyu, believes that the coming days will be critical as he reveals that the Buhari presidency will no longer take lightly any violent tendencies aimed at destabilizing the nation. Honorable Aliyu was a guest on our political program, Politics Today.
Totally agree with the recommendation of, using technology. Because look, this insurgency cannot be fought, in the normal conventional manner. So of course I agree with that, and kudos to them for saying that. But it's not that we're not doing that, but it's good that they've said it, they have re-echoed it, and the earlier they start believing in our country, this kind of suggestion, that's all right. But when we come about state police, now it's a huge matter. There are some constitutional amendment before that is done. When my brother, Senator Seriake, is saying one man in Abuja sitting down to dictate, did Buhari create the 1999 Constitution? It's been there. Jonathan worked with it. Buhari, Obasanjo, all other presidents worked with it. So if the collective view of we Nigerians is to create state police, let the members of National Assembly and all other people decide and change the Constitution, to amend the Constitution so that this suggestion could be taken. But if anybody sits and blames this government for the anomalies of the 1999 Constitution as amended, that I think political is not fair. Like when my brother Smart Adeyemi spoke about, you see, that's the beauty of democracy, spoke about he's a member of APC and he needs to talk, yes. But what we don't agree with, it's bringing the mercenaries, the soldiers of fortune. This government shall not invite any foreigner to deal with our problems. Because look, are you telling me we need mercenaries to deal with Masop or IPOB, our brothers? Do we need a foreign intervention to come and deal with agitation from Southwest? No. Our Nigerian armed forces should be encouraged. And let no Nigerian think lowly of our armed forces. They have been there for us. They are also being killed. In this country, police stations are raised. In this country, members of the armed forces are killed by Nigerians. And so if Nigerians don't come together and condemn these kind of acts, then you sit around and say that we need to bring foreign intervention. This government is not going to invite any foreigner to come and fight our war. We can do that, of course, with technology. Yes, we are going to go into that to ensure we use technology, kinetic system, and ensure we deal with these people. And then also as people of faith, we are not relenting in prayers. the Christians and the Muslims in this country are praying. May this government, or any government for that matter, succeed. May we have peace in this country. May the soul of this nation be back as normal. Do we have challenges? Yes, we do. Is the government doing something? Yes, the government is doing something. Probably to some people it is not good enough. We also have considered there are certain things that need to be done, and that is what is being done now, and that in fact the government is going to get a little ruthless with some people soon. Ruthless in sense of, you remember there was a time when Mr. President said, if you see anybody carrying AK-47 and does not put it down, should be shot. That will be re-echoed. Anybody that is not licensed to carry arms, anybody, no ethnicity, no religion, any Fulani herdsman that is a criminal should be dealt with decisively. Any ESN member that is a criminal should be dealt decisively. Any Afenifere member that is, coming out with arms should be dealt decisively. So let us as a nation, as a people, see that, look, a Fulani criminal is a criminal. An ESN criminal is a criminal. A Afenifere criminal is a criminal. So when we start seeing things from criminal point of view, not where you come from, not your religion, not because you're a Fulani or you're a Muslim or you're a Christian. We are all what we are by birth, first of all. And then if we believe in ourselves that, look, there are criminal Fulanis in this country, so the government should deal with them, should go after them. There are also criminals in other parts of the country. Now, is a criminal Fulanis, not killing Fulanis as well? Yes, they are. So let's look at it as they are criminals. So criminals should be dealt with without mercy. That's my take on this.
And everyone is becoming more security conscious now, and that's why the Bauchi state government is placing 4 local government areas of Zaki, Dambam, Darazo and Gamawa on high security alert following what it calls the influx of suspected criminals from Gedam, Yobe state who have infiltrated the state under the guise of being IDPs. The invaders are reported to have come in with weapons, and 5 suspects have already been arrested by the police after attempting to dismantle a telecommunication mast. The state government raised the alarm shortly after an emergency security meeting, noting that they'll commence immediate profiling of IDPs trooping into the state to prevent resettlement of members of Boko Haram migrating from Yobe state to Bauchi.
Of course, security is the responsibility of all of us. We do not expect that the security agencies alone will tackle this problem. So all hands will be on deck, including our traditional institutions, our religious groups. It will be expected that we will continue to profile whoever is coming into Bauchi State. I can tell you that some people come in with weapons, and it is the profiling that will help us stem that kind of problem. Apart from that, any criminal activity that is noticed as people try to settle among us should be promptly reported to the security agencies.
From Bauchi to Benue State in the north central, where 13 persons have been reportedly killed by men suspected to be armed herdsmen in Gwa West local government area. Eyewitnesses say the attackers also burnt down some houses in the community earlier today, leaving several others wounded, while survivors in their hundreds have been displaced and are now taking refuge. Police authorities in the state say details of the casualties and perpetrators are still sketchy, while an investigation has been launched into the incident. In part 2, after the break, prominent cleric John Cardinal Onayekon asked political office holders to place national interest above personal ambition to promote national cohesion. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Federal government sets up National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons as part of moves to check insecurity in the country. People's Democratic Party reaffirms commitment to the country's unity, lists ways out of current security challenges, including creation of state police and border protection force. At least 13 people killed in fresh attack by suspected herders on Gwe local government area of Benue State. And former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warns of huge consequences following decision for the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. In Kaduna State, the abductors of students of Greenfield University have threatened to kill the remaining 17 students in their custody if their parents and the government fail to pay the sum of 100 million naira as ransom by tomorrow. The parents of the victims told our correspondent that the new demand of 100 million naira by the bandits is in addition to over 50 million naira ransom paid to them over the weekend, with the assurance to release their children. In addition to the 100 million naira, the parents said the bandits also demanded for 10 new motorcycles before the end of tomorrow, Tuesday, May the 4th, and failure, they say, will leave them with no choice than to kill the remaining students in their custody. The leader of the criminal gang, known as Sani Jalingo, was quoted to have said during an interview in the Hausa service of the Voice of America that there are 17 students in his custody, including a grandson of the former emir of Zazzau, Shehu Idris, identified as Hamza. The gang leader also said that the 55 million naira ransom paid by the families of the students has been used to feed the victims. The former Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, John Cardinal Onayekon, is asking political office holders to place national interest above personal ambition and fulfill their campaign promises to promote national cohesion. Cardinal Onayekon says most Nigerian politicians have failed in their responsibilities to the people, and he is concerned about the high level of poverty, insecurity and social vices in the country. He appeals to them to make the welfare of the citizens their priority.
The sense of being a Nigerian is fast waning. We need to bring ourselves back together as Nigerian citizens with equality before the law, before the same law. We have to review issues like the Sharia as a parallel legal system in the same nation, the handling of the federal character and state of origin syndrome that has become clearly injustice. Our principle should be that our laws should not forbid what our religions impose and should not impose what our religions permits. This way, everyone will be free to be guided by the rules of his or her own religion, subject to the needs of good law and order in the community, under one law that binds everyone equally. This could be called a multi-religious formula that should be acceptable to both Christians and Muslims.
The World Press Freedom Day is commemorated annually on May the 3rd to celebrate the fundamental principles of press freedom, evaluate press freedom around the world, defend the media from attacks on their independence, and to pay tribute to journalists for their efforts and struggle in the exercise of their profession. Nigerian media professionals also joined the commemoration today. Our correspondent, Dare Do, looks at the challenges of media organizations and professionals in Nigeria.
To my office.
Journalists or writers of first rough draft of history, they say, and time may have altered the form and style of information dissemination, but some things never change. The Nigerian Constitution guarantees freedom of speech and freedom to receive and impart information without interference. Understandably, the freedom is not absolute, and there are instances where the government have been accused of attempting to shrink the civil space with draconian sanctions or fines.
Today,
The broadcast media, they are practically operating on their toes because you don't even know what to say, and they will not clamp down on you. The regulatory agency would always make reference to existing laws, maybe the broadcast code. There is now the need for a review.
The media should monitor governance and hold government accountable to the people. Now, what we've discovered is that government recognizes that, but they then put obstacles on our path through other legislations that will make it difficult for us to carry out the obligation imposed on us by the Constitution. It shouldn't be the NBC that would make allegations of violation of the code that will then decide that you had actually violated, and then will also go ahead and impose fines. That is like you are the accuser, you are the prosecutor, and you are the judge in your own case.
Objectivity, fairness, and balance are values that have long guided journalism, but in the rapidly changing media environment where news consumption is only a click away, the debate over censorship keeps hovering around regulations and whether there's too much information in public space.
The theme for this year's World Press Freedom Day is information as a public good, and as the public seek this information that would impact their health, their finances, and sustainable development, the media, on the other hand, would be concerned about the production, distribution, and the reception of their content.
Alabi Williams is the editor of the Guardian newspaper. He believes a lot is attached to press freedom.
What does it mean to be a journalist in today's Nigeria?
Between last year and this year, the economy has been really tough, and it's particularly tough for the media, the independent, the private media. That you have to source for your materials by yourself. You don't get subventions from government, whereas the responsibility is huge. It is a constitutional responsibility, to be a journalist.
The Reporter Without Borders World Press Freedom Index ranked Nigeria 115 out of 180 countries in its 2020 surveys. But on the bright side, Nigeria is said to be enjoying media pluralism with more than 100 media organizations in the country. Dari Idowu, Channels Television News.
Now let's discuss this a bit more. I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by the Chief Executive Officer of Vanguard Newspapers and the former President of the Nigeria Guild of Editors, Mr. Gbenga Adefaye. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you and good evening.
Well, good evening. Let's just move straight into it. Yes, there's been a lot of progress, but would you say journalists on this side of the continent here in Nigeria have anything to cheer?
Sincerely speaking, not too much to share. Why, yes, there's plurality where there is democracy, all of that. Of course, with the ICT intrusion, you can say, yes, a lot of development has happened. But the truth remains that the practice of journalism here is still hampered by overreaction from the state, by suspicion, by harassment, by intimidation, and of course by the economic deprivation. So, like I said, not too much to share, but we are making progress.
Yes, this year's theme is information for public good. How do you balance that public good with the calls for sensitivity? I mean, you keep hearing we should be sensitive because of what is going on right now in the country. How do you balance the need to do good in the eyes of the public against that call for sensitivity?
Well, I think the press will just have to continue to do its job. This call for sensitivity by who and for whom? This country belongs to all of us. There are principles for practice of journalism, fairness, balance, accuracy. I think those should be the primary concern of the journalist. Say the truth, separate fact from fiction, and then let those who want to be sensitive continue to remain sensitive. There will always be disagreement on what constitutes the correct thing to do between the state actors and the press, because the state actors generally do not agree that the press should be the monitor. They would rather work in closet while the press will demand openness. So to answer your question, follow the principles, be fair, be accurate, and then the sensitivity can take care of itself. We believe that once you follow the rule of law, there is justice, there is equity. That is the extreme for us of nationalism, not as defined by closest operators.
All right. Chief Executive Officer of the Vanguard newspaper and the former president of the Nigeria Guild of Editors, Mr. Gbenga Adefaye. Thanks a lot for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
The military is restating its commitments to Nigeria's constitution with a promise that it will remain loyal to the civil authority and the president, who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. This pledge of loyalty follows comments by senior lawyer Mr. Robert Clark, which the army says suggested that the current political leadership should hand over power to them for the purpose of restructuring. The army said in a statement that it's distancing itself from the comment, pledging that it will continue to discharge its constitutional responsibilities professionally, especially in protecting the country's democracy, defense of its territorial integrity, as well as protecting lives and property of civilians. The statement reads in part, "The military high command wishes to use this opportunity to warn misguided politicians who nurse the inordinate ambition to rule this country outside the ballot box to banish such thoughts, as the military under the current leadership remains resolute in the defense of Nigeria's democracy and its growth. We also wish to remind all military personnel that it is treasonable to even contemplate this illegality. The full wrath of the law will be brought to bear on any personnel found to collude with people having such agenda." It adds that the current security challenges in the country are not insurmountable, and the armed forces, in partnership with other security agencies, are working assiduously to ameliorate the challenge. The statement concludes with a reassurance that Nigeria will know peace again. When the News at 10 returns, we have more stories from our Abuja studio, plus federal government partners Microsoft to empower 5 million Nigerians and create over 27,000 new digital jobs in the next 3 years. And that will be on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back to the News at 10. Let's cross over to Abuja. And here's Linda Akibe. Linda?
Hello, Ijoma. Nigeria is expecting the return of £4.2 million seized from the associates of convicted former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, any moment from now. And that's according to the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami. A statement indicated that the federal government is in touch with the government of the United Kingdom on the matter. The minister explains the documentations with the banks in different countries often take longer than anticipated. 2 weeks was initial expected time. On March the 9th, the UK committed to returning the £4.2 million loot recovered from Ibori and his associates. The AGF also said the recovered loot will be used to fund 3 infrastructure projects, that's Lagos-Ibadan, Abuja-Kano Expressways and the second Niger Bridge, a decision that has also elicited reactions from the Delta State government. The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Mr. Ayuba Waba, is demanding a reversal of the directive by the Kaduna State government on the compulsory retirement of officers on grade level 14 and above. Earlier, the state government maintains that the public service with less than 100,000 employees and their families cannot be consuming more than 90% of government resources. That notwithstanding, Mr. Waba insists that the extant laws have been violated and that Labour will embark on industrial action at a yet-to-be-announced date as part of measures to address the situation. He was a guest on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily. Meanwhile, the Kaduna State government has been explaining its stand on the move to right-size the public service in the state, noting that it's a step which will enable it to cope with fiscal challenges and preserve its ability to use its resources for the entire state. The special advisor to the state government and media and communication, Muyiwa Adekeye, says the verification of the personal data of the public service is being conducted to determine the number of political appointees and civil servants who will be affected. The statement explains that the Kaduna state government was the first to begin payment of a new 30,000 naira minimum wage and increased minimum pension to 30,000 naira monthly for those on the defined benefit scheme. It adds that the state government has been living up to expectation, including ensuring that workers in all the 23 local government areas are well catered for. Now, Seahorse Lubricants Industries Limited has emerged the best lubricant producing company of the year 2021. The award is presented by the Institute of Oil and Gas Research and Hydrocarbon Studies at its product forum in Abuja. According to the Institute, Seahorse earned the prestigious award for maintaining quality in production of lubricant oil and contributing to the country's economy. It's the gathering of key actors in the oil and gas sector from across the country. It's also a time to reward excellence, and Seahorse Lubricants Industries Limited, manufacturers of lubricating oil for internal combustion engines and mechanical systems, emerges the best lubricant producer of the year.
Thank you. Congratulations. I'm very proud. Thank you. We are not going to relent. We are going to do more. It's a challenge. We are going to do more to ensure that we give Nigerians the best.
Organizers say the award is well deserved by Seahorse.
They have produced one of the best quality engine oil of the year. So, and we have to promote them in order to wipe away the selling of base oil and in order to alert Nigerians so that they don't lose their vehicles.
According to the managing director of Seahorse Limited, customer satisfaction remains the company's driving force.
It may interest you to know that within our 2 years of operation, we earned ISO 9001-2015. So our company is ISO certified.
The company also promises to continue to apply modern technology and engage qualified and well-motivated manpower in the production and marketing of high-quality lubricants.
With what happened today also, we go a long way in telling the world what we can do in as regards this. And you can see all these, we have synthetic, and this is our automatic transmission fluid, which also won the best in Nigeria in 2018.
Having successfully managed many lubricant marketing companies spanning over 20 years in West Africa and strong international business relationships, Seahorse Lubricants Industries Limited has an enormous wealth of experience in lubricant business.
We made it point of duty to maintain the quality of our lubricants, to blend a high quality lubricant.
People are satisfied with what we are doing and they are encouraging us to do better, so we will never fail them.
The management of the company insists that the award would only motivate them to strive to remain the best in the market. And that's all from Abuja. Now to Anne for business news.
Thank you, Linda. Hello and welcome to Business News. We begin with an announcement by the federal government talking about partnership with American multinational technology company Microsoft Corporation to speed up Nigeria's quest to achieve a digital economy. According to a joint statement by both parties, the initiative will center on connectivity, skilling and digital transformation across 6 regions in Nigeria and provide over 27,000 new digital jobs. It also adds that no less than 5 million Nigerians would benefit from the digital upskilling program over the next 3 years, and about 1,700 trainers will provide blended online and in-person training courses to youths and government employees. Microsoft explains that it will collaborate with local partners to design and implement cloud-based tools to further enable government's fight against corruption. Axis Bank PLC has announced the approval and payment of a final dividend of 55 kobo per 50 kobo ordinary share for its shareholders for the year ended December the 31st, 2020. Speaking at the bank's 32nd annual general meeting, the managing director of the bank, Herbert Wiwe, revealed plans by the board to ensure deeper penetration of the bank across the African continent. He also assures shareholders that the bank's operations and profitability will grow this year owing to strategies adopted to achieve a world-class institution.
One after the other, they come in for the 32nd annual general meeting of Nigeria's biggest lender by asset, Access Bank PLC. The meeting is a hybrid one in line with the COVID-19 protocols.
I now declare the meeting open.
Without further ado, the business of the day commences. Shareholders, board of directors, regulators all take turns to announce their presence.
We now move to the formal business of this meeting.
On the agenda for discussion at the meeting include dissecting earnings for the 2020 financial year, full approval of final dividends for shareholders, election and re-election of non-executive directors, amongst others.
I hereby move that a final dividend of 55 kobo per ordinary share of 50 kobo each be sanctioned, and that the directors be and are hereby authorized to pay same from the profit during the financial year ended December 31st, 2020.
The board chairman announces the final dividend and puts it before the shareholders for a vote. Unanimously, they agree to the 55 kobo final dividend.
I keep referring to the past because it's important now.
Addressing concerns raised by some shareholders, the bank's managing director, Herbert Wigwe, assures shareholders that the expansion drive will be beneficial to all.
There is no bank that was our size in 2002 that exists even in name today. All right? Now, here we are, by God's blessings, as the leading bank in this country. So now we can be a bit more generous in terms of what we pay out to our shareholders. So everything is about timing, about making sure that you have the appropriate capital to support your growth.
The voting has now closed.
The meeting offers an opportunity for the election and re-election of some directors. The air of optimism is present among the shareholders who believe the decisions of the board are in the best interest of the bank.
The most important thing is that in Access Bank is owner's manager, so definitely they know what is right decision because they have huge investment in the bank, and that has actually helped in whatever decision that they've taken and whatever decision they intend to take.
The Tier 1 lender has continued to intensify its cross-border expansion in order to take advantage of opportunities on the African continent, a move that is welcomed by its shareholders.
Oh, those numbers will end business news tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawado. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ijoma.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warns of huge consequences following decision for the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. Do join us again. Welcome back. The co-founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, and his wife Melinda have announced plans to end their marriage. Bill and Melinda have been together for 27 years. Announcing the decision to end their marriage, they said they'll still work together at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has commented on President Joe Biden's plans to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan. According to Mrs. Clinton, there's the risk of the Taliban retaking control of the country. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party has failed to win one of the key states in elections held despite record COVID-19 deaths and cases across India. Mamata Banerjee is set to be the chief of West Bengal for a third time after taking more than 200 seats in the 294-seat state assembly. Mr. Modi has been criticised for focusing on the elections instead of making the pandemic his top priority. For 12 straight days, daily cases in the country have topped 300,000, taking the total tally to over 19.9 million. Many states in the country are facing an acute shortage of oxygen. People can be seen standing in long queues to get cylinders filled for their family members who are suffering from the virus. The English Football Association has opened an investigation over Manchester United fans storming into Old Trafford to protest against the club's ownership. The FA condemned the violence that broke out as 2 officers were injured, including one who needed emergency treatment. Outside the stadium, police said there were more than 1,000 supporters. Most were protesting peacefully, but a group started throwing bottles and barriers at police and horses. At least 8 people have been killed in Myanmar after security forces opened fire on some of the biggest protests against military rule in days. Thousands of people in towns and cities across the country joined the protests, calling for the global Myanmar Spring Revolution. The deaths, reported by multiple local media outlets, were spread out across different cities and towns. A video also emerged of 2 police officers and 2 men in civilian clothes detaining 3 people on the street and putting them into what appears to be a civilian car during the protests. Colombia's President Iván Duque has withdrawn a controversial tax reform bill following 4 days of huge protests across the country. In a televised statement, he said his government would work to produce new proposals and seek consensus with other parties and organisations. Unions who organised the protests said that his proposed tax reform would disproportionately impact the poorest people. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets in anger at the bill and clashed with police. Military leaders in Chad, who took over after the death of the country's long-standing ruler Idriss Déby last month, have named a transitional government.
Président du Conseil militaire de transition.
An army spokesman said 40 ministers and their deputies had been appointed, but opposition figures say the military council, led by Mr. Déby's son, has carried out an institutional coup. The announcement has come after days of unrest in the country as demonstrators took to the streets to demand change.
Oh, victoire, victoire, victoire!
A dispute over the succession of the late South Africa's Zulu king, Goodwill Zwelithini, is now headed to a court. The first wife, Queen Sibongile Lamini, is challenging the execution of the late monarch's will naming the next king, amid claims it may have been forged. The news of legal action comes days after the death of the third wife of the late king, who had been appointed as regent just days ago. Queen Sibongile wants the court to recognise her civil marriage to the king as his only legally binding union. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Guinea have started recruiting participants to test a new drug to treat people with mild to moderate forms of COVID-19. The study is the largest trial in the continent to identify early COVID treatments. Researchers in these countries will also be testing a combination of 2 drugs. Both drugs are already commercially available and will be affordable and easy to access and administer if shown to be effective against the virus. The Italian government has approved a plan to furnish Rome's ancient Colosseum with a new floor. The culture minister said that the plan would give visitors a better sense of how the arena would have looked when gladiators fought. The plan is expected to be finished by 2023. And finally, it's like a scene from an action film. 42 Royal Marines in the UK spent 3 days testing different war scenarios powered jetpacks. Video shows a maritime boarding operation where a fast rib boat draws alongside a moving high-sided ship, and a Marine wearing the jet suit flies and lands on the ship, ahead of everyone else before lowering a ladder for the others to climb aboard. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola says his team is only focusing on themselves ahead of their UEFA Champions League semi-final second-leg clash with PSG on Tuesday. The 50-year-old tactician insists that his players must take control of their emotions if they are to make history. Meanwhile, PSG face an anxious wait to see if Kylian Mbappe will be fit to face Man City in Tuesday's Champions League semi-final second leg. Manager Pochettino insists he will not tweak PSG's formation with or without Mbappe, but emphasized the importance of his team converting their counter-attacking opportunities. And that's sports news.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The federal government today set up the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons as part of moves to check insecurity in the country. Also today, the main opposition party, PDP, recommended ways out of the security challenges in the country, while a chieftain of the ruling party, APC, Farouk Aliyu, said the federal government will end criminality soon by being ruthless to those fueling insecurity. And the Defence Headquarters today reiterated its commitment to Nigeria's constitution and loyalty to the President. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Good night.